celebrating the power of possibility.
I'm here at Glasgow, and I believe anything is possible.
This is Anything is Possible. My guest, I got to give full disclosure. This is also one of my colleagues, Mr. Eric Glasgow. Thanks for being here.
It's
Part
good to
two
be
of
here.
our story. Interesting story. This guy was born and partially raised in Goodlettsville. Finds his way, though, one of his early passions is broadcasting. Mm-hmm. And he starts to work at what was then Cinetel Productions, which morphed into HGTV and all of those channels that were affiliated. And then he goes over to WBIR, who's doing camera work and that kind of thing, comes back to the portfolio of companies that are part of HGTV, and he's in operations, and he's figuring out the stress of all of that.
Yes.
And he goes, I got to find something else to do.
Yes.
So that's where we left off. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I at that point I had left Scripps Networks, took on a job as master control operator for Fox 43. Was offered a job to go and work at WVLT. And worked at WVLT for a little bit. That's how I met one of my best friends, Bob Yarbrough. Mm-hmm. And then developed an infection around that time and wound up losing my big toe.
So this is the beginning
it was
of
significant. It was the beginning of stuff.
Right.
I'd been dealing with diabetic issues for a long, time, but that was a wake up call as far as looking at my diabetes. So, wound up going in the hospital, had my big toe amputated, and something still wasn't right. While I was in the hospital, I started losing oxygen. Wasn't able to cycle, process, oxygen, and things just got worse. I would go to the restroom and in the hospital and not realize that I was passing out in the restroom.
Wow.
My wife at the time was knocking on the door. I'd had painkillers, and of course they have an effect on your body, so I was spending a long time in the restroom. She would knock on the door and I was like, I'm just trying to go to the bathroom. She's like, you've been in there a long time. I was like, I know. It's taken me a while. I'm sorry. But what I didn't realize,
You were out.
I was passing out while I was using the restroom. And so, long story short, I was developing ARDS, Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome. It got so bad that I couldn't breathe at all. They wound up having to bag me and intubate me.
Right.
And I had passed out. I remember being in such a state that I told my wife at the time, I was giving her my goodbyes. I felt that dire, of circumstance. And so they intubated me, and I was in full-blown acute respiratory distress syndrome. My liver shut down, my kidneys had shut down, and I was in a coma for about a week and a half. It was I had had such a depletion of oxygen. They had told my family, my wife at the time, told my mom, my dad, my brother, pulled them aside and said they need to start making preparations, my final preparations.
What? Dadgummit.
Dadgummit is right. My mom is probably my rock and my anchor. I mean, still is today.
So what was she doing during this time?
During that time, her and my Aunt Joyce, I lovingly call her Aunt Joyce. It's my mom's best friend. No blood relation, but she's my Aunt Joyce. Her and my mom took a Bible. And at that point, I was laying face down. They put the Bible on my back and they went into prayer. both of them, just praying, out loud over and over.
You could feel the
For me.
Bible on your back, or you were?
I couldn't feel it. I was gone. I was in another realm, but they prayed over me, and loudly. They were. My mom said that they were, and my Aunt Joyce too. They said that that doctors and nurses would come by and just leave them alone, in their prayer. They either knew I was that far along, or they were like, he needs prayer. And so they prayed over me for hours. And I eventually started to come out of, the coma, and started to wake up and come to. And when I came to, I didn't have any kind of brain damage that I know of. It's probably recognizable by other people, but I basically came to whole, and I believe it was a result of their prayer. I don't feel I'd be here after that, without God.
I think that qualifies as a miracle.
Yeah.
Possibility powered by Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel.
Now you can listen while you're on the go with Anything is Possible, the podcast.
Well, one day I'm at work and I hear, "Did you hear what happened to Eric?" I'm like, "No." And something had happened to your leg, and then you had an amputation, and then you got a prosthetic leg, and then something else happened, and then you had another amputation. Tell me what happened.
The first amputation, I had been dealing with an ulcer on my foot. It would get better, go bad. It would get better, go bad. But dealing with it for a couple years, I even went through hyperbaric treatment, the oxygen treatment. And it finally got better. I had no issues. There was no ulcer. There was no evidence except for a scar on my foot. My wife and I went on vacation. While on vacation, I developed a fever, had a high temperature, it wasn't feeling good, body aches. And, at first I was like, oh man, how can I get the flu, on vacation, or whatever. That's what it felt like. Then it occurred to me, I've been dealing with that ulcer for a while. Let me go get this thing checked out. Doctor came in and said, yeah, this is bad. It's not just bad, but you've got multiple bones involved, and we're going to have to amputate your foot. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Let me, can we talk about this for, a little bit? Absolutely. Take your time. So we went head first into that. I got the amputation, spent my time in the hospital, got, home, and I got home with just regular oral pain meds, and it was horrible. The first night it was so much pain when I got home. I took as many pain pills as I could in a healthy way, and we went to bed. I woke up a couple hours later with it just aching and screaming. I sit on the edge of the bed, once again, in the middle of the night where you're alone with your demons. I laid in bed for a while, and then I sit on the edge of the bed, and I woke my wife up doing something on the side of my bed, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And all I could say is, "Penny, if you want to leave right now, I would totally understand." I didn't feel like I had anything at that point to offer. And my amazing wife, Penny, with the most love that she could have, and knowing who I am, she said, "Eric, shut the hell up."
She knew how you needed it.
She knew I needed it. She said, "Shut
just like the guy at the school
Yes.
jacked you up against the.
Yeah." She said, "This is only temporary." And that was what I needed to hear. I took some more meds. I laid down. We got through that first night. Then we got through the second night, kept going. And life went on. I was able to return to work with the prosthetic. And then fast forward.
Dadgummit.
I'm dadgummit. I was doing good with, my one prosthetic, was getting around. And I bought a drone. I loved, the idea of being able to have these, these pictures from that perspective and the idea. And so I got the drone, decided I was going to get some pictures of the sunset one afternoon in September 2023. Had the drone up, got some good pictures, was looking at a cow pasture down below. There was all these cows down there and a couple of donkeys, were in the field. And I dropped the drone down low. Well, I went too far down into a valley and lost control of the drone. I could still see it, flickering, and the drone went down in that cow pasture. Well, what was in my head is like, Penny's going to kill me. I have lost a $1,500 drone in a cow pasture. I was like, I gotta get this thing.
Right.
So I told her, hey, it's just right over, in a field, in a cow pasture that's far away. It was actually about a half mile away from, the house. So we set out walking through this cow pasture, and just dark at that point. We're walking through the cow pasture. All we can see is cow eyes, the reflections looking, back at us everywhere. We're in two different areas, and I step on a log about as big around as my arm. Only log, the only tree in the cow pasture had the log is laying there. I step on the log, I roll my ankle and rock it forward, and I hear an audible snap when that happens. I mean, I heard it. I broke my ankle. I was still hoping for the best. Maybe I just sprained it,
Broke it.
It was broke. I mean, it was like 90-degree angle broke. And I was looking at it with my flashlight, but it was dim, still. And I asked my neighbor, I'd called him over, yelled across. So he comes over, he shines the light, and I was like, "Do you think it's broke?" And he just kind of looked at me like, "Yeah, it's definitely broke." And I was like, "Oh, great." So we were like, "What are we going to do? We're out here in this cow pasture." I had to look at my phone, figure out my grid coordinates on the phone, and give the grid coordinates to
911.
like 911.
Right.
There was no address I could give them, I want you to know they were able to find me and locate me. So big shout out to the Blount County Sheriff's Department and all of their EMS
For
services.
finding you.
Yeah, because they brought the cavalry.
Now, take us with you with Anything is Possible, the podcast. Stream new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
But you end up with more than a broken ankle. You end up with another amputation.
I broke the ankle so severely. When I went to the hospital, they had surgery, immediately that night. I had 13 plates, screws, and devices. I still hadn't figured out what those are. In the ankle. Did surgery right away. Also during that time, they discovered I had congestive heart failure.
Oh, wow.
I was having trouble laying flat, and I couldn't get my breath. And so, I had to deal with all of that, too. So I'd had heart attacks in the past.
Attacks.
Yeah.
Plural.
This has been an ongoing thing, man. I mean, it's been one dadgummit after the other. So I had surgery on the ankle immediately. Came back to work after it was healed up for about, month and a half. And they said, well, that the screws and devices and so forth aren't serving you well. You're going to need to have another surgery. The surgery we're going to give you is going to be a spike going through your heel up through I can't remember if it's the tibia or the fibia, but it's going to fuse that, ankle together. It'll give you more sturdiness. Won't let it rock. And with the type of neuropathy you have with your diabetes, it's going to ensure you don't, break it again. And I was like, you're sure this is what we're going to, yes, this is going to work for you. This is going to be good. Because of my diabetes and all the complications that I had, my body wound up kicking that surgery. I got a bad infection in the bone once again, and that led to the second amputation. So I was like, we're going to need a minute, So I talked to my wife, and I told my wife, I was like, you know what? You better just go ahead and put me down now.
Again, you're at the same
You're going to have to put me down. This is not going to be any life, for me. And she, once again, being the amazing wife she is, but she was like, Eric, you are not your legs. You're still, Eric Glasgow. You're my husband. You're a Marine. You're loved by many people. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this too. And at the time, I didn't believe her. I didn't. The honesty of the situation is that, she and my mom and stepdad, they took all the guns out of the house. I mean, they believed my sincerity. Yeah. And it's like, that was the right thing to do. I'm not saying I would have done or hurt myself, or anything, but that was the way I felt at the time.
Yeah, maybe.
And they loved me that much. They wanted to remove those possibilities.
Love is the ultimate possibility.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So imagine where you are right now, because as you take us through this story and as we land the plane, you're sitting here as a miracle.
Yeah.
Heart attacks, plural.
Yeah.
Coma, infection, heart failure.
Yeah. Double
Amputation.
Yep.
And yet you sit here ready to sing Keith Sweat right now. So can you imagine God cutting your legs out from under you so that you could walk with him?
I can imagine that.
Taking something away so that you could feel the full force of how much we love you. Your wonderful wife loves you. I met your mother and stepdad here today.
Yeah.
And to be surrounded by that kind of love, but then to have the capacity based on all the stuff you've been through, you now are certified to tell somebody else who's wondering if anything is possible. It is, because you're on the other side of that possibility.
Yeah. That was still, it was still a road though. I woke up from that surgery, and the first person that I remember waking up to was my brother, looking over the bed, looking right. He was this close to me, smiling at me, and he was telling me that he loved me. There was so much love from my brother's face, that I thought that I was on the other side when I was waking up, at that point. But there was so much love in his face that it was like I thought at first that I was, seeing Jesus. And as I slowly woke up, I realized it was my brother, and then I was disappointed. Well, I'm kidding. But, it was just that whole feeling. And I went through such a process of grief after that, being in the bed, realizing I didn't have either leg, at the time. You're in a hospital bed, and those hospital beds, they can become a pit, that'll suck you down and make things worse for you if you do not keep the right mindset. And my mom was splitting time with my wife, staying with me in the hospital while I was there. And I looked over at my mom at one point and I asked her, I said, do I look funny? I was moving around and trying to adjust myself with no legs. I said, do I look funny? She was like, no. What do you mean? And I said, well, I wasn't born this way. And my mom looked at me with all the sincerity in her heart and said, no, you weren't born that way, but you were born for this. And I believed her. I'd had my wife there with me, had my mom there, my brother coming in, my stepdad, had my dad on the phone. He's got his own, physical issues and still lives in the Nashville area. Had them on the phone. My best friend from the Marine Corps, Jason Reed, was just basically my brother too. Had him on the phone back and forth. And I decided there in that hospital bed, I don't remember what day it was, what hour or anything, that I'm done feeling sorry for myself. I'm done. Today's the day. And I started getting better. They were able to fix my medications in regard to my heart issues. Once that, turned over, I was, turning a new leaf, was ready to go.
Well, I'm glad that you, God, and Mama made that decision.
Where would we be? Any of us without the prayers of our moms or grandmoms or anything.
Prayer is possibility. And I thank you for being with us today and for being a person of possibility. Eric Glasgow, I love you, brother.
I love you too.
And you can't do nothing. I know that's not good English. You can't do nothing about it.
I love you too, man. It's so good to see you today.